Welcome everybody, it's your boy, the Versace Stoner, with another episode of VSW.
These sons will beat you.
That's right, folks. Big news flash. Oh my God! VSW.
Brass hats know what time it is. Get up off of your seats and bow down to the king.
One of the greatest in this game, and one of my favorite all-time people in this game. The Versace Stoner!
It's places like this. I started in a mill. I'm here still in a mill. I consider myself a mill wrestler.
Welcome, everybody. It's your boy, the Versace Stoner. We're here with a very special episode of VSW podcast. We got a very special guest coming all the way from England. That's right, Matt Jarret. And we're going to talk SuperClash V. I'm very excited for this. I've been, seeing things on my news feed. I've been following the cookie trails. This is great. Thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you very much, Stoner. It's nice to meet you, my friend. I hope you're not stoned while we're doing this interview.
Not yet, but probably by the end of it.
That's good, man. My dad's from Jamaica, so we've got some good herb on the island. I don't indulge myself, but I do know all about the stone. You know what I mean?
My wife's Jamaican, I understand, but yes. But where we are here in Mass, it's federally, not federally, but it's state legalized, and I'm actually a medical patient myself for some of anxiety ailments. So for me it's very beneficial. It helps me. It helped me be able to get out there and put myself out there to get into the meeting people. I had a lot of social anxiety and a lot of just self-doubt in doing what I do, but I'm beyond that now. I'm even better in the way I handle it. But in the early days I was kind of timid in these interviews and kind of afraid, not really knowing who I was talking to. But yeah, this is great. I am like I said, I've been seeing some ads, I've been seeing posts, I've been seeing a whole bunch of things. So this is number 5 though. And you've been running it since day one?
Yeah. I started running SuperClash basically in 2014. Originally, the SuperClash was basically when I did a deal with New Japan Pro Wrestling. I brought over Jushin Thunder Liger, and I brought Satoshi Kojima over, and I brought Davey Boy Smith Jr. over, and I brought Luke Hawk, and I brought Prince Devitt over, and basically the idea was to do a super show twice a year, it several different venues across the UK. The first one was okay. The second one, obviously, we had AJ Styles on versus Doug Williams and Rampage Brown. We also had Jushin Thunder Liger there. We also had Hiroshi Tanahashi, and we also had Paul London and Spanky. And then I took a bit of a break and I brought it back. But, when you bring things back, you sort of have to bring it in slowly. So the one we brought back, it wasn't really a big scale one. The last one we did in February, and this is obviously the 5th one. So, let's keep it rocking.
Yes, and you mentioned some great and wonderful names out there, and it's like, you talk, you look back in time kind of, and it's like, now it's some of these names are untouchable. You can't even get to them. They're behind contracts. They're behind walls that we can't even move. But back in the day, like, for instance, I'm wearing a Limitless shirt, and it's a close, it's about a 3-4 hour promotion away from me up in the state of Maine. Their first champion was MJF. That's that's an amazing champion to have as your first champion.
Yeah.
Try getting him now. It's a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, I mean, the second SuperClash 2, it was actually AJ Styles, and at the time he was the IWGP heavyweight champion. So we actually had the bout for the first time in Europe. It came to on the Super Clash 2, and that actual show was a funny one because we had Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Chris the Bambi Killer, and Chris Bambi Killer at the time was contracted with All Japan, so we actually had an All Japan and New Japan fight in the UK. So it was kind of like a history, and then the third Super Clash, which was ironical, we basically brought the royal family, the Kennedys of the United States to England. We brought Ross and Marshall von Erich to England, which was quite a big thing. They've never been before, so that was a good thing as well. Yeah.
So, you kind of broke some grounds there. And I mean, just like I'm saying, I'm just thinking in my head, like amazing matchups. Unfortunately with like time difference and stuff, I always get it's hard for me to watch like foreign wrestling just because with the time change. So I end up having to watch it like secondhand. A friend will say, "Hey, have you seen this match?" Or, they'll send me a YouTube link. The same thing happens with New Japan. I know I got some friends that they'll wake up, whatever hour it is, they set their alarm and off they go, and they'll be watching pay-per-views at like 2 a.m. But, for myself, I just kind of get things kind of second-handed. But, you're talking dream matches here. Let me ask you, you said you started in what year? 2014?
Yeah, well, I started actually promoting wrestling in 2006. I actually got into the wrestling business in 1995. I was 15. I mean, it's a lot different over here in the UK to the United States. I mean, obviously, you can't start wrestling properly over there till 19. Over here, most pros have started by the time they're 16, and they're already out on the road. It's just totally different over here to the United States. When we wrestle with the Americans over here, obviously, it's totally different over here. We're more for audience involvement, and we got like the holiday camp circuit, which is kind of like your Walt Disney World, but probably brought down on a real low scale. But
you make it very immersive. You make it more of an experience rather than just a basic show.
Yeah. It's a lot, I think, because over here the wrestling business has always been more technical than the American style of wrestling. Let's say the New York style, where you've had to be 6'5" or 320 pounds, or you've got to be a former NFL football player. Over here, back in the day, wrestlers were just like your average guys coming out of the pubs and just getting it on. So that's why we start a lot younger over here. And of course, over in the UK, we like to fight for some reason.
No, definitely. And it's kind of funny because you mentioned that, I tried to become a pro wrestler, back in we're looking at 2003 perhaps, and I went to the Killer Kowalski School of Pro Wrestling down here near me in Malden, and they basically just kind of laughed it off and was like, "No way, kid, we don't need anybody 5'8". What are you gonna do out there? Like, not happening." So I went into boxing because, at boxing, at least, you can be a little short because it's by weight. Just get in the right weight zone. You'll be in the right height zone and it's fine. There's not these restrictions. And, fast forward, 20 something odd years almost, now you got, on the indie and on TV, you got average people, all different heights wrestling, professionally. They've kind of taken that, larger than life, characters and have kind of scaled some of them down to just average people that hey, this guy you could see on the street. Back in the day I grew up with like Andre the Giant and King Kong Bundy and these grandiose characters that they're not you're not gonna ever that it's not like you could ever see him. You can't picture Andre doing regular human things, and when you do see the photos of him doing human things, like it's weird because he's so much bigger and his hands are huge. You don't have that kind of magic in today's wrestling. There's a few big guys, but not like that.
You couldn't expect like you couldn't imagine Andre the Giant sitting in your local Burger King having a Whopper meal with your kids and stuff like that. It's just not normal, is it?
So when you came into the business, though, you came in as a professional wrestler. You were doing wrestling for shows and, working matches. What did you make you want to do that? I always ask the American people this, and it's always funny because, they'll be like, "Oh, well, I watched on TV," but I've never actually asked, I never got to ask that question to somebody from the UK. Like, what got you into wrestling?
Yeah, sure. I basically come from a single parent family. My mum was really the only breadwinner. My brother's ironically was a professional boxer. He's 10 years younger than me. But basically, I was getting into a lot of trouble with the police when I was about 14. Adolescent stuff, not anything serious, just like fighting. Angry young teenagers as you are, but probably just took it to the extreme. Paul Heyman, I didn't know him, so you can't really blame him for that one. So basically, my mum used to take me to the local town hall over here. We don't have armourers. We got your local town hall, your local venue, and wrestling was every fortnight over there. Because obviously, 91, 92, when I started going to watch professional wrestling, it had only been off the mainstream TV in England, the world of sport, for probably 4 years. So companies like All Star Promotions at the time were still having that run with all the guys from what happened to them off the TV. Like if A-Team, when it came off TV, what happened to Mr. T? So all this was still going on. So we used to go there, and basically that's how it all started. And then when I was about 15, I got into trouble, and there was a lady called Pat Hodson who was like a youth worker, and she basically said to me if I behaved myself for about 3 or 4 weeks, and I had to really behave myself, knuckle down at school and stuff like that. She would introduce me to 2 of her nephews, and one was Peter Collins and Danny Collins, pretty famous wrestlers over here, and that's how I got into it. So that's how I got my start in the professional wrestling business. So, and then it snowballed from there. So when I was like 16, I was already a full-time professional wrestler, living out of my suitcase, not living at home, being on the road.
Yeah, just running, working the shows.
Yeah.
And
Trying to make a living.
that's great though. And I like hearing, people that have been, kind of been passionate, but got into it at a young age, and it's just been kind of just rolled with, and like this is now their life. This is, they're into the wrestler's life, and it is a different lifestyle. I've talked to many different guys. It is live out your suitcases some of the times. I mean, not everybody's, a WWE superstar, and even those guys, they're living out of a suitcase. You're on the road a lot. If it comes down to it, especially on the indie scene in this area, the more shows you run, the more exposure you get, and also the more money you're gonna make. So you want to work, as many shows as you possibly can.
I mean, it's crazy. Like people say, the WWE schedule is crazy, but if you think about it, our holiday season over here, when I was wrestling on the holiday camps in 97 and 98, you were doing 2 shows a day, and that was 7 days a week. So where they say WWE is because obviously the travel with planes, etc., going to different cities or different states.
Yeah, but that's
obviously.
again traveling with planes. I mean, a lot of people in the indie scene that they're using their own car. They're lucky to get there. They're taking trains. We got 5-4s. How many you can fit into a car? Everybody's sharing gas, especially here.
Over here.
Gas prices went sky high. Travel it became hard. Wrestling pool kind of got smaller because of that, because of the inflation on the gas. Because a lot of people don't want to travel too far, and a lot of promoters, if they're not bringing in that kind of money, can't afford to pay the extra.
So yeah, we would travel 6 nights a week and do 2 shows and travel in a van. So and you're putting the ring up, putting the ring down. This is twice a day. So and you're wrestling, and then probably you probably might get a night show as well. Go to an actual town show like Croydon or one of the town shows that were local. So sometimes 3 times a day. So we have got it was a busy schedule over here. I think that's why a lot of Americans used to come over here and obviously learn their trade, because they knew they could get in the ring a lot more. I think what it is, the difference between the United Kingdom and the United States is the travel. Our country is much smaller to the United States, obviously. So, so it's more of a learning curve over here, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and like for here, I mean, for the longest time, US was just, before WWE, before, WCW, everything was territorial, and the states were just kind of divided, and you worked here, West, South. It's kind of similar and the same in the Indies. There is, the West Coast, and it has a bunch of promotions, and you got, where I'm in the Northeast is, just it's a wrestling haven. There's a lot of great talent that's come out of here, for everybody from John Cena to Sasha Banks have trained, in New England and coming out of some of these schools. We have great legends, and then you got, this, down in Florida, you got, people down in Texas coming out of there. And it's just, and you'll have great wrestlers, and they might have never even left, New England, but they're, well into the household name, but they might not be, ever had a wrestle in California, especially now with like things like IWTV and stuff. You can really get your name far if you're good and
Yeah.
you get on these high ranking shows. Beyond puts out a great show, Limitless puts on a great show that you can really get on and showcase yourself on IWTV, and then catch the fan bases that can't make it, to those local shows every week or every month, or how often they're run. That's the beauty of today. Prior, you would have to read it in magazines. Growing up, I had PWI subscriptions to read through and see if I could, see some of the cool names and stuff. But it's different. It's different now. So you were wrestling, you were running the Zergits, you're doing your thing, and then would you just decide one day, you want to put out your own product?
Yeah. I decided that I wanted to become a promoter about 2006. Mainly because the area I live in England, which is Gloucestershire, which is between Bristol and Birmingham. So I'm sort of like on the where you come at the Bristol Channel, Cardiff, that sort of like little area there. I mean, the most famous person ever to come out of Gloucester is Fred West, who committed all those murders and stuff like that. I don't know if you know about that. There's sort of a joke over here about a guy who put his kids under the patio, and that's the area I'm from. Not that I put people.
Well, like Jack the Ripper was that kind of area.
Kind of like that, a bit worse actually, a bit more gruesome than him. But
yeah.
So I decided I want to put a few shows on, and I went to a charity because I didn't have, when you set a business up, you need money. I don't come from a wealthy family, so I went to a charity which is run by King Charles now, but it was called the Prince's Trust, and they gave me a grant. So they gave me a grant of about £1,500, I would say. So probably around about, change the currency back then, it was probably about $2,000. And I put the first show on. The first show was an absolute disaster, which, coming from a wrestler to a promoter, it's a total different ball game. Then the second show we did again in about the February of 2007, or maybe, about 2007. I brought Robbie Brookside in, who's now a NXT trainer of the WWE. And when I got introduced properly to Robbie, I mean, I'd known Robbie, I'd done lots of shows with him, but, I wasn't in his circle of friends or anything like that. But once I started promoting wrestling, and I used to go to Robbie for quite a lot of advice, and he would get like some wrestlers who, like Drew McDonald, and, I started getting the bigger names. Dave Taylor came over, Johnny Saint came in, Danny Collins. So some of the big British names that I'm mentioning now, you'll probably know of. And then I started getting the idea about this SuperClash. And I said to Danny, I said, I really want to crack at it. And he said, who do you fancy getting on? I said, well, I was really wanted Jushin Thunder Liger. And the reason there was because I saw Liger when I was about 11 years old in England, because he came here as Fuji Yamada. And he learned his craft here. So I saw Liger, but I never knew who he was. So I said to Danny at the time, I said, that Fuji Yamada guy, where is he these days? So he said he's Jushin Thunder Liger. So I got the computer out. I'm thinking, oh, right, who is he then? So I typed him, and I thought, Jesus, he's massive. So I brought Jushin Thunder Liger over here, and I got very pally with a guy called Tiger Hattori, who was the booker for New Japan. He booked all the foreign talent. So we started speaking. I told him what I wanted to do, and he said, would I want to bring Kojima over? Because at the time, Satoshi Kojima was the NWA heavyweight champion. So that was the first real big title. When I say title, that was a real world prestigious title, which I brought to one of my events. And I thought, I've got it now. This is what I wanted to do. And now I'm going to keep this name, and let's keep expanding it, and keep going and keep going.
And I mean, you made some real sweet power moves, kind of with just grabbing in that these huge foreign wrestling entities, like, for instance, like, yes, WWE is big, but it, even for the US, it's just, it's US based. I feel like, and this is just like me, it's kind of like, like football. Football is big, and to me, WWE is like football. It's like the NFL. It's big, but
Yeah.
it's not quite as big as soccer. Right? Soccer is just something that's just everybody. And I feel like New Japan is kind of like the soccer of wrestling. They have been, in England. They have been more to other countries, and their wrestlers are more seasoned in that area. Even on their local scenes, these guys get shipped in and shipped out to wrestle. And they come back with great knowledge, great wisdom. I just feel like they're just more world renowned. And back in the day, if you were a WWE star or just an American wrestler, it was a great honor to get, invited to Japan to wrestle.
Yeah.
And some of the American wrestlers, look at Hogan. He gave his best shows in, Japan.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Like the WWE is kind of like how humans originally thought the Earth was, flat and you fall off the edge. I think WWE's got that thing. It's flat, and once you come out of WWE, it's like off you go.
I
There's no
always
other
tell
wrestling.
there's like wrestling fans, and then there's WWE fans. There is something outside that bubble. Once you get out there, it's like, I dived in, and around, when I grew up, I liked WWE. Obviously, that's what got me into wrestling. WCW was great as well. And around 2003, when everything just became kind of one and synonymous, I was just like, eh. And I went into boxing. I started doing other things, but in around 2016, 17, I started getting into the independent scene. And it was an all new game because, now I could go to shows that were locally close. Didn't cost me, a fortune of money. I could meet individuals, and then I could, talk to them online. I could, everything was very tangible.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like to be able to sit a front row seat without having just, put a mortgage on my house. So, me and my wife, we started going to shows. We started checking out the independent scene. I started falling in love with a few of the promotions, and more it just spiraled to me just, really liking wrestling again. 90% of what I watch is, the independent scene and kind of, the higher end independent scene, GCW, I said Beyond, Limitless, IWTV stuff, New Japan. I like that, Ring of Honor, even. I do watch WWE for the heritage. I do watch, for the experience, I guess, for the nostalgia. But for the most part, for me, it doesn't satisfy what it used to do for me. Same thing kind of with AEW. It's cool. It's fun. It's hip. Some of the matches are amazing. Some of them are great. It's a little bit more engaging for me than WWE, but it's still, there's just something missing for me that's just not on that indie scene. And once you get into this corporate kind of ordeal, it's just like,
Yeah,
I have something special just to, with, like I said, the indie scene. It's passion. I love seeing guys though that, one day are on these, cards, whatever tier indie promotion. And then, a year or two later, you do see them on that episode of AEW. You do see them on that episode of SmackDown. It's great to see them kind of move in that direction. It's like, wow, these people have grown so great. So no, I'm guessing you did this for a few years, and then the big enemy struck, COVID.
Yeah, I did, but what happened was my sister. I had a big sister. She was a singer. She was actually a jazz singer, and she was pretty good. She sadly had brain cancer and passed away. So my world kind of crumbled in. And after she passed away, I met her just before she passed away. In the November, she died in the June. In the November, I met my fiance now, Jackie, and I told her I used to be a professional wrestler. I was a promoter, and I sort of sat with her and I said, I want to go back to what I want to do eventually. But my sister was more important to me at the time. And so I took a little time off, but then I knew, my passion for professional wrestling, it's always been there. And I think it's like you as a podcaster, once you've got something that's in your blood, you can never forget. It's like alcoholism. It's like drug addiction. Wrestling's the same, unfortunately. We're built from a different, I don't care when people say, he's a podcaster. You're a part of the wrestling business just like me. We just do different roles. You promote wrestling through your podcast. I promote wrestling so people will come and see. We're all in the same world. The fans are a part of the wrestling world. Without the fans, there's no wrestling world. So these wrestlers who sit there and say, well, don't speak to the fans, sign autographs, but don't tell them anything. Well, that's codswallop. That's stupidness. Because if you don't talk to the fans, they ain't going to come back. If they don't come back, guess what? All the promoters are going to go bankrupt. And there's going to
And
be
you
no
don't
wrestling.
know which fans are actually, famous or, people are important. You never know, who's
Yeah.
watching. You
I mean,
don't
like
know
going
if
back
there's a
to
scout out there.
going back to where you we're talking about the independence. Years ago, we did the tape trading. So when I was starting wrestling, I was tape trading. I met a guy from like Manchester up north, and he liked my work and stuff, like my wrestling work. And we started chatting. And I said to him, and he told me he was a tape trader. And I said to him, I can never get matches of this certain wrestler. And I'll tell you who he is in a minute. I'll tell you now, it was Tommy Wildfire Ridge. You couldn't get a lot of stuff of his over here. And when I was wrestling, and some of the Americans used to come, and I used to say to about Tommy Rich, they used to tell me about all these matches he had with like Hardy Race and all these back in the day. Well, over here we didn't really see that. We saw the WWE, we saw the NWA, WCW. We didn't really see. So Tommy Rich was only like that was that point when he came back and he was kind of like jobbing to probably Joey Maxwell or I don't know. He wasn't up the top anymore. He was down middle card. And through that, I used to get a lot of independent cards off this guy I met, Norman, his name was. And he used to get me all the independent cards. So I got to see a lot of the independent stuff as well, which I was always pretty like, well, okay, well, they're not wrestling in these big stadiums. They're wrestling, little sports halls. They're doing exactly what I'm doing. So there's an art to this. And so I started, like you, enjoying watching the younger wrestlers, or the older
Yeah.
wrestlers who have a bit more, like your Tony Atlases and your Ricky Steamboats who are not on WWE no more, or getting the tapes from Japan and stuff like that, and watching All Japan Pro Wrestling, because one of my other heroes was Johnny Smith. So WWE was never really a place for me. I never wanted to. I'm not that big anyway. I didn't want to go there. I didn't want to gas myself up or kill myself for a job. So I watched stuff that I knew I was capable of doing, and that's why I sort of favoured the All Japan or the New Japan stuff, because I watched those guys. So that's what did it for me, or Tommy Rich, because Tommy is a fair sized guy, but he looks like your average guy. The Ultimate Warrior is not an average sized guy.
No, not at all. And like that's what I was saying, going in and being as an average, height, it was like, yeah, we don't need you. Don't try, and it's fine. Like I said, and the boxing world is a little bit different because yes, okay, you want to be big, you want to be tall, you want that height advantage. You might not necessarily want the weight unless you're tall, though. That's the thing. But you can still do it at whatever height, just got to make sure the weight kind of matches. And it's a little bit more disciplined because, obviously it's a full contact sport and they just won't match you if your weight isn't there, especially on the amateur scene. They just won't, you won't be able to fight. They'll like, there's nobody here or you're overweight, underweight. But, then later on, like I said, when I saw things kind of, changing in the gear of how pro wrestling was being shown in the wrestling styling and all of that, I decided to do some, I did a couple of trainings, with some local guys. I did, a fantasy camp with the New England Pro Academy. That's where like Sasha Banks came from and stuff, and we had a whole day of that. And that was fun, with running ropes, they're teaching you this, doing that, it is. And it's more like you said, it is bringing, it's different now. Maybe 30 years ago, maybe fans were just there to watch the show, but now today you don't have, you have between social media, people's phones, and everything else, the fans are part of the show. They're catching things that the cameraman ain't catching. They're catching things at the hard camera. How much, you got 2 cameras at a show, 3, 4, maybe 5 tops, 6 if you're good. How many cameras in the crowd? 80? If it's a good house show, you got a lot of views, a lot of eyes on a product. That's all, coming through, fans. That's, coming through people watching.
If you think Vince McMahon, I mean, touching a different subject, getting all political now, but Vince McMahon was a very lucky man, and he's got where he is because he was a very lucky man. I mean, I know he didn't meet his father till he was 12, but his dad promoted Madison Square Gardens. I mean, come on, that's not the easy leg up for anyone. I mean, that's your biggest arena in the United States. I mean, that would be like my dad running Wembley Stadium every week. So if I wanted to go and do it, my dad would give me the tips how to do it, or go and speak to Joe Bloggs, who owns it, and say, hey, my son wants to promote something here. Yeah, come on, we'll do it next Saturday or something like that. So Vince had a very good leg up. It's not like he had to work from the ground upwards. Of course, he has worked.
No, he didn't have to walk through the the locker room as a green trainee and meet the promoter and then have to work years and years on independent circuits, potentially never even getting used, and then kind of have this idea and then have people want to believe in the idea, find funding for the idea, have to go and he wasn't running shows at what we call VSW halls and bingo halls and such. No, he had access to all the tools he needed to run something very successful. That is true.
Yeah, but like going back to that story now, with what you said, cameras and there could be anyone now, which is Ring of Honor have already proved. Anyone could go and get Madison Square Gardens now, and with the world which it is, with Putin holding the world for ransom. Basically, it's anyone's ball game now. So I don't think Vince has got the hold like he used to have.
It is, and and as successful as some, the indie or even pro wrestlers are, there's people that just sit around and honestly, there's gamers out there. There's YouTubers, there's podcasters, there's other people that got even bigger followings. I mean,
yeah.
And it's crazy how you can now, if you just work your passion, whatever it is, and I tell this to people all the time, whether it's computer work, whether it's sports, whether it's music, songwriting, whatever it is, just keep working that passion. If you keep working it, every time you work something, there's a chance of becoming a star. It's probability now at this point, the more you work it, because average people are getting stardom. Average people are making it to the next level on their own. They don't, not behind a corporation, not behind a producer, not behind, a big promoter. They're getting found, discovered through themselves, through their own social media, and the world just takes it, eats it up. And, this is our next guy. We want this guy. And, everyone's trying to get that guy, but, he made it from himself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the great kind of thing about that. Like I said, anybody right now with a little bit of money or a little bit, it doesn't even have to be a little bit of money. You could just have really passionate fans and they want to see you succeed. They'll find a way to get you into Madison Square Garden to run a show.
Yeah, I mean, it would be so, now if we look at it in 2023, it would be easy for me now to come over to the United States to run a show because, with the age of the internet and all, I mean, like we could connect with each other. I could say to you, all right, next October I want to run SuperClash 7 at New York or somewhere. Get me a venue. You could get me a venue easy. I don't even have to leave my house, and all I have to do is get on that plane to come over for the show and run it. It's that simple, man. So it's like there's not the competition's really there nowadays. That's what I was trying to say.
It is. But now we're at SuperClash V. What do we got in store for this year? I mean, what do we got looking forward to?
Well, we've got 8 matches. So far, we've got 5 matches confirmed. We've got UK's probably the best wrestler in Europe, James Mason, going against Kenzo Richards, a great wrestler from Holland. We've Jake Omen from the United States versus Sheik Al Sham, which is, again, both great wrestlers. I think they're going to give it all. I think Jake comes over to Europe and does a bit of trekking from the United States. So that's how we sort of got in contact with each other. We got the veteran Jack Vaughan, very, very popular on TikTok and crazy stuff like that. Here we going against Yestin Reese, a local Gloucester boy. We've also got a guy called Aaron Williams, who I'm looking forward to watching, going against Red Scorpion. Another great contest there. And we've also just announced Adam Maxted, who was on like the Love Island, which is like
Reality
sort of
show.
a show
Sounds like
from
something my wife watches. Yeah.
yeah, and he'll be going against MVK. So there we got a variety of 4 or 5 decent matches, and we've got a few more matches to confirm, which will include former NXT superstar Tucker from Ireland. We've got Dean O'Mark, one of the top British guys over here. We got a guy called Starbuck, who's originally from Canada but lives in Finland now, and
Yeah.
yeah, we got a couple of other guys coming on. So I've got quite a lot more to confirm over the next couple of weeks.
That's gonna be great. This sounds like a really exciting show. Now I know you sent me, links on the tickets, and I'm gonna include that link, with the post and in the info section about here as long, with as much information as I can possibly get. But for me personally, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get out there to England. But let me ask you this: is there ways for fans in other countries to watch the show?
We are looking at the streaming. Me and my business partner have started looking at the streaming. We're actually waiting. My idea is to do an event with the Von Erichs. I want to bring them back over next year, just after the Iron Claw movie comes out, and then see if I could stream an event. Because when I brought them over, this was the weird thing. When you go onto your social media,
Yeah.
you can have a look at the bottom where these people come and watch your content. And then you can break it down to where states they are and whereabouts they are in the world. Well, when the Von Erichs came, they did a video for me, and they got I had 50,000 views. I was thinking, where have all these people come from? Because they weren't in the show, you know what I mean? And I found out most of these people were in like their 60s, and they were from Texas. So, if I brought them again, there would definitely be a streaming system, so I can make sure now. I think, I can. I think there is a catchment. I think there's an audience now for Americans and Japanese people to watch British wrestling like we watch New
There is. I
Japan.
mean, I'm going to tell you right now, people near me are going to listen to this. They're going to hear this. They're going to want to, see these matches. They're going to be like, well, let me stream it. There's a lot of there is a demand for streaming wrestling. There's a demand for, outside of the US wrestling, because the styles are different. And you are getting people, like you said, from other countries around Europe that we just don't have access to in the US. If they do, they come, they work one show or 2 shows, but we don't get to see them as much as somebody in England or in other parts of Europe would, because that's, the local traveling area. So, there's a lot of people that, I know personally, love to go in to wrestling tape swaps and stuff like that. And they'll find, try to find old English wrestling and stuff and swap out, American wrestling, the independent leagues. And there is a market for that. And it's great. Because, like I said, it's a whole new world out there. Once you get past, your TV wrestling, it's something totally different. And that's, really where I'm at right now, just finding that difference, finding, that something that brings that spark back,
We were going to bring Tajiri in for this one, but I'm a bit 50-50 with him, because he's one of those guys he was a great wrestler, and I would never disrespect Tajiri, because he's anyone who goes through the Japanese dojos. I mean, they're superior. They are the best, I think, trainee wise, to get into the business. But I was thinking about bringing him, but now I'm more wanting to use the British guys more than ever to really get it going. This one, I really want to do SuperClash V as sort of like a more British show than bringing Americans. Obviously we got 3 Americans, but they're backpacking around Europe, so it's a bit of a dollar for them before they go back to the United States, before they come back home. A bit of money they could earn when they backpacking around Europe, you know what I mean.
Very nice, though. Very, very nice. We're very, like I said, excited for this. And we're gonna keep close eye on it. And who knows? Maybe we'll bring you back after, talk the results. I know I'm gonna try to get the results of these matches. Like I said, give the American audiences, something more to watch. You've sent me links. I'm gonna share those links again. Get the name out there. Get people talking. It's a lot of great wrestling in the whole world. It doesn't have to just be in your town. And there's a lot of passionate people in the world about this industry. It's not just, your favorite promoter. So, that's why I kind of wanted to get you on the air. You were running a great show. heard it from a few people. I do thank you for coming on my show and, discussing your product and going through your history and such.
Cheers, my friend. Thank you for bringing me on, and it's been an absolute pleasure. And hopefully, I get to meet you in person soon, and hopefully, we'll bring a SuperClash over to the United States soon.
Maybe. I mean, I do have a cousin that lives somewhere in London. I don't know where exactly, but she does live out there. Maybe if she ever invites me, I will come out there and then check out your promotion. That would be great. But until then, we'll keep in touch though. Thank you again. Have yourself a great day or night,
You too, my friend.
Bye-bye.
See you later, my friend. Bye now.
Bye.